And I think it is particularly hard at the moment. I think if you finished a book, that's a massive deal, right?
Yeah.
You know, well done to you. And also, whether or not it gets taken on or published is largely a matter of arbitrary things like luck and whether it happens to be on trend at that particular moment. So I think you have to accept that you're going to have to sort of pat yourself on the back.
Hello and welcome to this special extra episode, an anniversary special of The Conversation with your host, Nadine Matheson. Yes, you heard me right. And also you're probably thinking it's Friday. Why am I getting a new episode? And that's because it's the second anniversary of The Conversation. We have been going for 2 years, 2 entire years. We are on episode 104, which means that we have had 104 fantastic conversations over the past 2 years. And I thought you deserved an extra episode this week. So before we move on to my conversation with the fantastic Anna Mazzola, I just want to once again say thank you. Thank you so much for joining me over these 2 years. And I hope that you continue to join me and continue to enjoy all the conversations that I have. And thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. So happy birthday. And it's a double happy birthday because it's my birthday on Wednesday. So happy birthday to me on Wednesday and happy birthday to The Conversation. Right, as I like to say, let's get on with the show. This week, as I said, I'm in conversation with Anna Mazzola, who usually writes historical fiction, but has now moved on into legal political thrillers. And she's writing under the pen name Anna Sharp, and her new novel, Notes on a Drowning, is available now. The links are in the show notes. And as well as talking about how important it is to celebrate the small wins as an author, and we also talk about book piracy, in this conversation, we talk about the inevitability of a lawyer writing a legal political thriller, the realities of shouting objection in court. It will make sense when you hear the conversation, and reinventing yourself as a writer. Now, as always, sit back, we'll go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Okay, Anna Mazzola, welcome to The Conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
Anna, my first question for you is, considering that you've written, is it 5 historical crime fiction novels? I think
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, right, you've written 5.
I think it's 5.
We think it's 5. Was it inevitable that you would end up writing a legal thriller?
Yes. Yes, probably. All of my novels tend to be about justice and injustice anyway, no matter what I try and write about. My third one was about automata in 18th century France, and it still managed to be about justice. So I think, we always end up going back to what we're interested in, don't we? And this was when I was casting about, when I was deciding I needed to write in a new genre and what was I interested in. Unsurprisingly, I came up with, I'm pretty interested in the criminal justice system and, and also in politics. So it's kind of a legal political thriller. So it's basically drawing on all of my career and stealing the funny bits from it.
Stealing the funny bits. Did anyone ask, like in the very beginning of your writing career, when you're meeting with agents and meeting with publishers, did anyone ask you about writing legal thrillers? Because I'm trying to think of my agent asked me if I was ever going to write a legal thriller, and I think I said, no, never. No.
To be honest, when my agent realised I was writing legal thrillers, she wasn't particularly delighted about it. I think she was
really?
Yeah. She might disagree with me, but it wasn't. I was certainly never encouraged to do it. It was never a kind of, this is an obvious, you should be writing this. But then maybe that's because I came, when I was seeking an agent, it was with a historical novel, but it was essentially a legal novel. It was based on a real case in 19th century London, and it's one of the main characters is a lawyer. So yeah, arguably that was historical legal thriller right from the start.
It's so funny because I think when we think of legal thrillers, we think of like the John Grishams, because I think
exactly.
I say when you're our age, like when you was growing up, when you was a teenager and in your 20s, that's all you saw. It was John Grisham everywhere, on the TV, on the bookshelves.
Yeah, and I still think that that's what people associate when you say legal thriller. People tend to think either John Grisham or sort of the Lincoln lawyer. But of course, that's not what I'm writing. That's not what you're writing. So I guess that's what's become very famous, and they're usually American law books. Whereas it's actually a pretty broad spectrum, the legal thriller world.
Did you ever think about readers' expectations when they learned that you're going to be writing a legal thriller, and also like what they would expect? Because you said most of what they know, and I say most of what they know is from the American stuff that they read.
Yes, and in fact, in the novel I'm writing at the moment, I've actually had to explain that subtly that the British barristers can't really leap up and say objection every time someone says something that they don't like. And in fact, what British barristers do is they stand up and they very politely say, my lady, I fear that my learned friend has overstepped the mark. There's none of this objection and jumping about. But yes, I mean, there is that angle that people expecting a legal thriller might expect a John Grisham. All I can say is they'll be desperately disappointed.
It's funny. It's what I always say to the baby lawyers when I'm teaching them advocacy. I always say, from the very beginning, I'm letting you know now, you do not shout objection. So you need to be very, very British about it and stand up politely and say, Your Honour, my learned friend X, Y, and Z. We don't shout objection. No one can shout sustain. There's no gavel. All of these things I have to say to them from the very first hour. This is what we do not do, because you've watched too much American TV. This is not Suze.
No gavels, absolutely zero gavels, which is a bit disappointing. I mean, I kind of wish we had them, but there we are.
I do, because I was watching, what am I watching? I'm watching this series on ITV called The 12. Sam Neill's in it.
Okay.
Yeah, quite good actually. And it's Australian legal drama series.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, I say a lot, because you follow a court case. And obviously you should watch it. The Australian legal system is very similar to our system.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
The thing is, I don't know if this is just for TV effect or whether this is real. The barristers, or the lawyers were saying objection. They were very British when they said it. Oh, it's very Australian, just very, you're an objection. But they said it and I thought, I wonder if that's true. And I think we should do that in court. Say objection.
We should introduce it as a thing we do. You're right. Why should we do, be all British and polite about it? We should stop all this. My learned friend knows not what he says. We should just go straight for objection.
Also, and it's also quite awkward as well, because you have to stand up and try not to make too much noise while getting your gown together, which has got entangled in the seat. It's a little.
It would be a lot easier if you could just yell at the judge. Or your learned friend.
Yeah, anyway. It would definitely be. So how would you describe your writing journey, Anna?
How would I describe my writing journey?
Your publishing journey.
Long and arduous, like most of our publishing journeys. No, not really. It's actually been I've been pretty lucky, I think. But as with everyone's publishing journeys, there are a lot of ups and downs, and I think you don't realise that at the beginning, because you go from desperately trying to get an agent and thinking it's never going to happen, and then you do get an agent and you do get a publishing deal and you're on top of the world, and it seems incredible. And what you don't know is that actually that's the easy bit. What's even harder is kind of staying in the game many years later. So I started off, it took me a long time to write my first novel, because I was still sort of working pretty much full time as a litigator, and it probably took me 3.5 years to write The Unseeing, my first novel, which was, like I say, based on a real case. And I was very lucky to get picked up by an agent, Juliet Mashins, quite quickly. And I did have to do quite a lot of work with her to rewrite it, because when she first had the book, it started with a trial. It was all about the trial. And she looked at it and she said, Anna, you're a lawyer. You think this is interesting. No one else thinks this is interesting. So I had to rewind and make it about the characters instead, apparently. So I did quite a lot of work on that book, but then it sold pretty well, as in I got a good deal for it with a publisher. But then the actual book didn't sell that well. And neither did my second one. So then I got a different publisher, and my third book came out, The Clockwork Girl, which is the one that's done sort of best. That was nearly on the bestseller list. But then again, my two novels after that haven't sold as well. So it's been very much ups and downs, and I just sort of think we are a pretty determined bunch, us writers, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we will do what we can to sort of stay in the game. And in this case, it means me clawing my way back from the grave and reinventing myself as someone called Anna Sharp.
But what is it? I don't know if like saying what it does to your psyche, but that's the only way I can put it. But what does it do to your psyche when you because there's so many ups and downs with the journey.
Yeah.
Because it would be amazing if it was just you got your agent, you got your deal, you get an amazing deal, and then your book comes out, and immediately you get everything that you want. You get the #1 bestsellers, you get posters all over the place. What else you get? You get TV optioned. It would be amazing if it was like that, but the journey is so up and down. So what does it do to your psyche? Like, what do you tell yourself? I think it's a better question.
Well, it definitely messes you up. I found that I've relied a lot on writer friends who understand what it's like, and we help. Well, we help sort of pick each other up and give each other confidence, because it is a real knock to find out that your book hasn't sold what they were hoping it would sell, or that it hasn't got whatever promotion they've put it forward for, or perhaps your publisher decides they don't want the next book for you. There is all, and because it is something very personal, it is like a fist in the stomach every time, I would say. So it does. I know some people are a lot more resilient than I am. I personally find it quite difficult to keep picking myself up and carrying on. I think I've only really been able to do it because of my writer friends, because of the people who know what it's like and stand with you, and also readers hearing sometimes I'll hear from readers with lovely things about my book, and it will come at just the right moment, to really cheer me up and think, wow, this is actually incredible that I'm writing something that other people are sharing with me and getting and understanding, and that's a real boost, I think. But it is very hard, and lots of people do drop out of the game after a few books because they're not making any money out of it, and they are not getting enough from it. I mean, I think I'm one of the types who will probably carry on even when I'm not selling anything, so because I think I need to write. So in a way, anything else that comes with it is a bonus. But I think if you looked at it from a logical point of view, for most people, writing isn't it's not a sensible job, is it? And that's why it's
No, but it's not, because I've had this conversation like loads of times in this podcast. Writing's the only job where me and you will sit at our desks working, I'll say like diligently, if I have to say minimum of 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even 5 days a week, it's 7 days a week, because you're trying to get something done. And then you produce the piece of work, and there's no guarantee as to what happens to it at the end. It could either soar or it could sink. Someone might pick it up, or you say that agents, editors may say, no, this is not what I want. And I can't think of any other job where you would spend that amount of time working on something with there's no security attached to it.
There's no security, but maybe that's true of any art. I don't know. I think it's true a lot of it, but certainly, writing a novel is a massive undertaking. It's like I always compare it to sort of building a house. Like a publisher or an agent says to you, why don't you build this house? And then you build the house, and they're like, you know what? I don't really like that idea for a house anymore. Can you just build another one? It's kind of like that, isn't it? Because it's a massive thing. And I think there's often not a recognition, I guess, because people in the publishing industry, for them, it's a business. They think you can just sort of create another one out of nowhere. But as we've discussed, that does have, a real impact upon you psychologically. You have to be able to pull yourself up and write it again. And I've got into a habit now of sort of congratulating myself on things. If you finish a first draft, that's really impressive. If you finish a second draft, that's also really impressive. I think, especially for people who are trying to get agents at the moment, and I think it is particularly hard at the moment. I think if you finished a book, that's a massive deal, right? Yeah. Well done to you. And also, whether or not it gets taken on or published is largely a matter of arbitrary things like luck and whether it happens to be on trend at that particular moment. So I think you have to accept that you're going to have to sort of pat yourself on the back and not expect people to do it for you. Because obviously there will be nice times, and there will be prizes and shortlistings and times when people say nice things about your book and give you a boost. But as you say, for lots of us, a book that we've slaved away will come out, and it might just sink. That might be the last anyone hears of it. So you kind of have to know in yourself that you've done well to even get that far, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always say it doesn't matter how small like the moment is, that little bit of success, you just have to celebrate all the small things.
Yeah, you do. Yes, yeah. I also congratulate myself by buying myself necklaces. That's a less wise.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I have several Alex Monroe failure necklaces for projects that have not come off, or something's gone wrong, but I've completed the work. I bought myself a necklace, so I wouldn't recommend that. That's not that's like buying yourself a present for making literally no money.
Buying jewelry. But it's like I've been listening to Mel Robbins' podcast, because when I walk I need something in my ear. I can't do news when I'm walking, so I'll just find some podcasts. So I started listening to her, and I was listening to her episode where she's basically saying that every morning, like, she high fives herself no matter how crappy she feels. I know. And I didn't think I would be the sort of person who'd be like high fiving yourself. Like, I'm just waking up going, oh my God, I can't even see where my glass is. Like, I need to get up and start moving. But she was basically saying it's like a mental thing. If you high five yourself, even if you high five anybody, the only other emotion after that is going to be like happiness, because you're applauding someone. So it's like, so why wouldn't you not applaud yourself in the morning or edge yourself on?
No, I love that idea, but I also don't know how you high five yourself. Like, do you literally just high five one hand to the other? Do you high five the mirror? How does it work?
High five the mirror.
Okay. Well, I'll try that and see if it works for me. See if I'm buying fewer necklaces and things off into. Let's see.
But I think it's that same concept. Like, you have to celebrate the small wins, because this business, and it's only when you're in it then that you realise how up and down it is, and how also not everyone's journey is the same. Yes,
very much so. And like you said, I mean, there are people, of course, whose novels sell for lots of money, and then because they've sold for lots of money, then publishers put lots behind them, and then they do really well, and they continue to do well, and that's marvellous. But that isn't the experience of most of us. And of course, for a huge number of people, they don't even get to getting an agent, because that's, the chances are you're not going to. So it's made me realise that you do actually need to believe in what you're writing and want to write it anyway, because you've actually no idea what's going to, unless of course you're self-publishing, that's different. Then you have more control, then you know what's going on. And I can increasingly see why people do it, and it's and why it's appealing. But certainly if you're seeking to be traditionally published, then whether or not you succeed is pretty random.
No, it is. And I think it's important to have a plan in place as to, okay, if this doesn't work, like the whole getting an agent thing, then I need to know what my other options are. And I think, and there's nothing wrong with just saying, no, I just want to get traditionally published. I just want an agent. That's what I'm going to focus on. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think you need to be aware of what else is available to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think I was when I was first, I mean, this is admittedly in sort of the 19th century when I was trying to get published, but I don't think I was aware of and I also think that the other options have become increasingly sort of desirable in the past sort of 10 years or so. I think there are a lot of options for people who want to get their work out there, which maybe there weren't a few years ago. So yeah, absolutely. But I also think, even if you are traditionally published, it's a good idea to have a few irons in the fire, just because you never, as I say, I've had projects that haven't come off, I've had projects that have, and I think if I only had one thing on the go and that thing failed, I would find that really hard. So I kind of see it as an insurance policy. I always have a few things bubbling away, and hope that one of them will sort of come to fruition.
I was thinking, I don't know if that's a lawyer thing or just people wanting to be safe thing, because I always say, and I don't know maybe if it's the right train of thought to have, I always say I feel like I'm on shifting sand, so I'm gonna make sure I'm not putting all my ideas, all my opportunities into one basket. I'm gonna try and do different things, because I don't like that feeling of feeling like I'm on shifting sand, and I've always had that kind of approach to things.
Maybe that's a lawyer thing, or maybe that's a writer thing. People can write in and tell us.
They can write in. Put it in the comments. Is it
a lawyer thing, or is everyone trying different things to keep going? Yeah.
Unless maybe it all depends on your background. Maybe, I don't know.
Actually, that's true as well. Because yes, probably if you live on a vast estate and could be sailed out at any point in your life, it's a bit different from growing up in lovely Croydon. Anyway, let's not talk about Croydon.
Anna, what I've been asking lately is, when did you realise you can write? And I don't just mean write The only thing I'm thinking of right now is like legal briefs, but legal briefs is so American. Applications. But when did you know that you could write creatively and tell a story?
Well, I knew pretty early because I was always writing stories. I think like lots of us, I was always writing stories when I was younger. And then when I was either 12 or 13, I had a short story published in a selection, and I got to meet loads of famous authors like what's her name, Jill, who did The Worst Witch, and
did you really?
In fact, what's her surname, Jill, anyway, Jill Murphy, and my sister was there too, and she recited the first page of The Worst Witch off by heart and made Jill Murphy cry. But yeah, anyway, so I kind of knew early on that I had some talent, but then I didn't sort of go back to it for years. I mean, I've always loved books, and I studied English at uni before I did law, but I didn't carry on writing creatively at that point, really. It wasn't until I had my son, who's now 13, that I started properly writing again. I went on a short story writing course, and that kind of got me into the habit of doing it. And I remember it was a real significant moment for me when I had a short story I was writing chosen for something called Liars League, which is a great thing where if you get chosen, then a professional actor will read out your story before an audience, which is a really lovely thing. And it was just incredible to see this, amazing actress reading out my story, and people were listening and enjoying it. And I thought, oh, wow, this is an incredible experience. And maybe I do have some talent. Maybe I should give it a go. Of course, I didn't realize that writing a novel is really bloody hard, and also that once you've written a novel, it turns out everyone else has written a novel as well. I think that was the first moment when I thought, oh, maybe I should give this a go. So quite late on when I properly embraced it. But then again, I think it depends on your background, doesn't it? I had that great experience with a short story, but when I was growing up, I didn't know anyone who was a writer. I didn't know anyone who sort of made their living from it. So it probably didn't strike me as something that was possible until quite late on.
I think that's always the thing. I feel that for a lot of people, you don't realise that, not that you don't realise, you just don't know that being a writer can be a job. It seems it's so alien. I mean, some people may say it's not even a job now.
Yeah, obviously.
But it just seems such an alien concept. I think especially I would say at 14, 15-year-old age, thinking, I could be a writer, could be an occupation, especially if that's not what surrounds you.
No, exactly. I was thinking back to then, the careers talks you get when you're at school at that sort of age. I mean, certainly no one suggested to me that I might do anything creative. I mean, they're probably wise. Actually, I mean, I don't regret becoming a lawyer in any shape or form. I'm very glad I did. And I think, especially at the moment, it's always useful to have something else to fall back on and something that will make money, because it is shifting sands, as you say. It is pretty precarious financially. So it's useful to be able to make a living in a different way and not have to rely entirely on an advance. But yeah, as you say, no one suggested it to me as a career when I was growing up. There we are.
It sounds like a weird question, but it's like, what made you take that step and submit to an agent? And also, like, did you know what you were doing? Because I always feel like a lot of us don't actually know what we're doing. We're just submitting, but we're not thinking about what happens afterwards.
No, I wasn't thinking. I mean, I didn't think it would happen, because you hear so many stories, don't you, about how impossible it is to get an agent. And so I did a course at City Uni called the Novel Studio, and that was helpful for me in terms of structure and helping me finish the course and finish the novel. Sorry. And then basically the thing that made me finally send it out to agents is that I thought I was going into labour. I thought I was going into labour with my second child. Yeah. And I thought, well, once that happens, right, that's the end. I'm not going to be able to be writing anything, am I? I'm going to be cleaning nappies. So actually, it turns out I wasn't going into labour. It didn't happen for another week or so. But that's when I sent out my novel to a bunch of agents. Like, I'd been putting it off, and I thought, if I don't do it now, it's just not going to happen. So I did it. And then, incredibly, my cat turned up to be part of this conversation. Hello, Sydney. Come and join us. Incredibly. Then I got offered representation by Juliet Mushins when I had a tiny, tiny baby. And I remember her ringing me up and trying to have this conversation with her when obviously, and I was in the car and the baby was in the car. And then when I eventually met up with Juliet, I said, "So you're offering me representation?" She said, "Yeah, that's what I said to you on the phone." I was like, "Right, I didn't really take any of that in." I was a bit shell shocked. I didn't plan it at all, because then of course I had to edit a novel with a tiny baby. Wasn't thinking at all. I just thought, I thought it probably won't happen, but let's give it a go.
But again, it's not even that you wasn't thinking about editing a novel. No one, and I don't remember anyone actually telling me that I would actually have to edit a novel after I signed. Like, there's no, and it sounds really stupid when I say it out loud, but when I think about all the talks I had that I went to when I was doing my creative writing MA, all of those talks and anything I would have found online, I always say the information stops at the submitting to an agent bit. There's very little information about what happens afterwards and that process of then working with an editor. It's only when you're in it, and then also then you start meeting other writers, then you start to learn.
Then you get it. No, I absolutely agree with that. And actually, the novel studio course was good because it did. They had an editor come in and talk to us, and a kind of. And so we did have some information. In fact, I've been back a few times to talk to them about publishing, although they've stopped inviting me now, presumably because I was too negative about the whole process. But I did it. But I wasn't negative, but I was honest, because I think absolutely that most writers, when they start out, they have just no idea what's expected of them. And of course, there's a whole language of publishing that you don't. Yeah. I still don't. I've taken now to stopping my editor when she says things like, what was it she said to me the other day? Because of course within publishing there's just language they use that that we don't like, the jacket proof or the you know, things that just mean nothing to me. And I'm like, what is that? What is it? And why do we have to do it? And it just means a blurb on the back, by the way. But yeah, I think it's very much focused on getting an agent and not very much about the process once you're in. But I do think if you've been on a writing course and you've done workshopping with other people, then that is hugely helpful for the editorial process, because you're used to getting feedback, you're used to people saying your work is crap. And you're used to having to change it. And of course, if you're a lawyer, you would have been being told your work is crap for years. So
I know, but it's funny what you when you talk about the language that editors use, and not understanding the language. Like, I was just thinking that before I started, I had no idea what the difference was between a line edit and a copy edit. So when they said, your line edit, no, I didn't know. She said your line edits are gonna come. I said yes, but I had no idea what she was talking about.
No, exactly. And that's what I include now in my publishing, when I do the publishing spiel. So I explain, the different stages. So you have to do the big edit, the structural edit. Then you might have to do a line edit, which is a line by line edit. Then it gets sent to a copy editor who will do a more detailed read through and realise that you've made all sorts of factual mistakes. And then you'll have a proofread, and then maybe another proofread. Yeah. But you're right, I had no idea of any of that to begin with. No.
And I always feel like when you come from, and I keep saying a profession because I always refer back to my profession, but I don't think it doesn't matter what your profession is. When you've come from somewhere and you've been doing that other job for so long, and you understand the language of your job. So we understand the language of the legal world very well. And you know how to, your position in it, and you know how to navigate it. And you've been doing it for donkey's years, and then you leave that and then move into something new. I think it's a bit disorientating, because you're like, do I know anything about life? Like, who am I?
But actually, it's probably good for us as lawyers, because I think we're very bad or very good at lapsing into legal language and totally confusing clients. I try not to do it, but my more assertive clients or people I work with will say, I don't, what is a judicial review? What are you talking about, Anna? And so I think in a way it's quite useful for us to have that experience, to remind ourselves that there are certain different worlds, and if you haven't been initiated into them, you don't know the language, and it makes you feel like an idiot. So yeah, but I'm trying to remember what it was my editor said to me the other day, and I thought, I have just no idea what she's talking about, and I'm now on my 6th book, so I'm clearly not learning very quickly.
Once you were in it, in publishing, what surprised you the most about publishing?
Well, the first thing, and this is, such naivety on my part, was that I sort of assumed before I got published that you wouldn't really know how your book was going to do, and that you might just turn out to be a Sunday Times top seller. You might write your book, and then the next thing you know, your agent has rung you up and go, Anna, guess what? You're in at number 5 on the Sunday Times chart. I thought that was something that could happen. Of course, I now realise that well in advance of your book coming out, or possibly even written, whether it's going to be, a huge financial success. Because if it is, then you will have had a big push behind it, and you will have a huge, retailer sell-in with the supermarkets with Waterstones. So it's not going to come as a huge surprise if your book does well. And in fact, similarly, you can also recognise the warning signs. You know if it's not going to do very well because you're not getting very many reviews, and you haven't got good selling, and you haven't got, So I guess that was the biggest shock for me, that actually guess what? It works like any other business.
Yeah.
What you get out depends largely upon and what you put in. And also the stuff about the bookshops, and how, what you see on a table is generally on a table because Waterstones have been paid to put it on a table, not because some bookseller really likes that book. That all came as a bit of a shock to me, which is making foolish, but there you are.
And that's the thing, it makes you foolish, but you feel like an idiot when you learn about it. But it's still, even now, it's still like surprising. I don't know if surprising is the right word, but I still feel like, are you serious? Like, people have paid to be on a table or to have a certain book club sticker put on their book. And I just think it's outrageous.
Yeah, and I mean, we won't go into, but the amount of money that is involved in applying for some of these promotions is huge, and that of course means that only the big traditional publishers can be doing it. You can't, if you're a small publisher, there's no way you can be part of that. So I guess because we're involved in the creative side of it when we're writing a book, we're not fully aware that it is of course a business, and that it works as most businesses do. And it's a kind of, it's a difficult balance, I think. And that's why, as I say, it's useful to have a few things going on, because you're not in control of any of it.
No, I know. I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's like, it irritates a certain side of, it's hysteria, because it irritates a certain part of my personality, which is like, how dare you fool us? Like, it's not right, because we're creative people, and we're creating art, and you want your art to be, oh God, I sound really delusional, but you want your art to be treated with a certain kind of respect, a certain level of respect.
No, you absolutely do.
And to be given a fair chance. That's what I think. That's what I think why it irritates me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, absolutely. And I don't think it's an unreasonable wish for us to have. We spend a long time creating these things and writing them and rewriting them late into the night, and when we should probably be doing other things. So I don't think it's unreasonable to then want to have it treated with respect. And I think, unfortunately, the way the industry at the moment is that, I'm not saying people are disrespectful, but they're focused on their financial survival, and that means that lots of things are going to get thrown aside along the way.
Yeah, I was on my Substack. I think it was this week. Yeah, it was this week, because for some reason book piracy was like sort of trending on Blue. I say trending on Blue Sky, and it's talking about it. So I was talking about it on my Substack, and the infuriating thing about book piracy is the reasons why people do it. Well, they'll go into these illegal websites and download books, and they'll be like, it doesn't matter. It's just a book. Because that's what someone said to me. It's just a book. It's not just a book. It's my sweat and tears that have gone into this book. And also, it's the knock-on effect of it. If you download books illegally, no one's going to know that you're Alan. Where did I get Alan from? That your Anna Sharp books are out.
Stop revealing my real name, Alan.
But you know what I mean? There's a knock-on effect for it, because no one's going to be buying my book or your book because they're getting it free, and then the publisher's going to be looking at that.
I'm renaming myself.
Rename yourself Alan Sharp. I don't know where Alan came from. God forbid.
The sad thing is, it would probably do better if it was Alan Sharp, isn't it? and it'll probably do
No.
really well.
Don't
But no,
say
you're
that.
absolutely right. You're right with book piracy. It's hugely frustrating. It drives me mad when people say, it doesn't matter, or I don't have enough money. Well, you don't have enough money to go to a library.
Yeah.
And libraries need us to use them, or they can't get the funding. And also, you can get borrow books, you can get loads of library books online now. So I think certainly if you're in this country, then there isn't really any excuse for it. And it is. I confess I lost my shit with I did a book group of quite rich women. This is a long, long time ago, and they were telling me about how they all use oceans of PDF, whatever it was.
No, and the thing is, they said it out loud to you.
They told me about it like there was nothing wrong with it. And these were women who were, I think, at that time drinking prosecco. And I said, it's really damaging to authors for you to be doing this. It's really not okay. Anyway, they didn't invite me back.
If I'd done it, I wouldn't tell you that I'd done it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people don't realise there's an issue with it. They don't understand why it was. And to be honest, I was buying pirate CDs when I was about 15. So maybe I'm just bad.
I was buying pirated tapes from the market when I was 15.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I've been an angel. However, as an artist, as a creative person, I don't want anyone to
now we get it. Now we get it. Yeah.
Now we get it. Now I just thought I was getting a good deal from Tony down the market, but now it's like no.
I'm gonna take back that Shakira CD. Sorry, Shakira. Although, to be honest, wasn't she... Anyway, I'm not going to say any more because who knows? Shakira could be listening.
She could. You never know. She could be listening. What do you find more frustrating? I don't even know if this is even a fair question. AI or book piracy, or are they just as bad as each other?
I think AI is more frightening. I think book piracy is, it is damaging, it is annoying, but AI is more concerning in that it feels like we might all be out of a job to the extent it is a job in a couple of years. That does feel quite frightening at the moment, and it just seems to have moved at an extraordinary pace, and with not that many people hitting back against it. So I'd definitely say the AI threat is much more serious, but you could have both at the same time, in which case we're finished.
I was talking about this in my other podcast. I was talking about AI, and immediately I always say, as a child of the 70s baby, 80s child, when I think of AI, I automatically go to Terminator. That's like the first thing that pops into my head. But then also, on a serious note, when I was Googling, and ChatGPT is only 2 years old. Like the week we're recording, it's his second birthday.
Wow. Yeah, and it's so much has changed in that time, hasn't it? Because that was sort of that when we all became really aware of it, and since then, because the week we're recording this, we've had what are those guys? Spines. Seeking to disrupt the publishing industry by introducing thousands of AI books.
8,000 books, Anna, and I think it's a load of bollocks. I got very annoyed about it. I worked out this calculation. They want to disrupt the industry by publishing 8,000 books a year, and they want to charge
really bad clothes.
It's so bad. It looks like they should be. I mean, there's nothing wrong with serving coffee, but it looks like they should have their little coffee shop. But they want to sell 8,000 books a year and charge $5,000 per book. So for me and you to have a book. So basically, your whole motivation is trying to make 40 million in a year. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's certainly not about bringing brilliant creative things to the world, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say it is essentially vanity publishing, but on a huge scale. Just making people pay to get their books published. So it's not even a clever idea.
It's not. It's not clever. It's not original, and it's just infuriating. And I'd hope people just don't give them their money.
Yeah, but I can't imagine that many people will do. But maybe they will. Maybe people are so desperate to get published that they will.
I think what it is that for a lot of people, and I don't think it's it's understandable, is that if you've been working away on something for a long time and you've been trying the traditional route and you're just being met with rejection,
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point, it's going to affect you emotionally, mentally. And if you feel like and if you're looking at someone's going, I can get your book out there to not even like end of the day, I can get it out there in an hour, then they'll take it. It's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. I said I understand it, but I just hope people just take their $5,000 or £5,000 and invest it in themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Just self-publish and spend the $5,000 on marketing your own stuff on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, it's such a lot of money. Listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. Anyway, let's go back to you. Let's go back. Does it feel with your Anna Sharp book? So this is your legal thriller. No,
Alan Sharp, we've decided.
Alan. I need to pull myself together. So with Anna Sharp, not Alan.
Yeah.
Which I have in front of me because I read it. Does it feel like you're starting again as an author?
Not really. I mean, there was a lot of new stuff to do in that it's not set in the 17th century, so I had to learn about modern technology like fax machines and things like that. But I think I don't feel as at sea as I did when I was writing my first novel. I think when you're a debut and you start, you really have no idea what you're doing, and as you're writing, you're working out how to write a novel. So although I do occasionally have to Google how to write a novel because I convince myself I've forgotten, I do know really, I understand about story structure and character and dialogue. And so all of those things stay the same. But obviously this is intended to be more of a thriller, and it's modern rather than historical, and it's set in sort of the world of law and politics, but in a way that's not so vastly different from writing historical fiction, because when you're creating a world, you're creating a world for your characters, and whether that's historical or within a law firm or Westminster, you still have to create that world and then make it real for your reader.
Do you think it's difficult? Did you have any difficulty in keeping like the balance right? And I mean the balance in the sense of talking about the law, because it's a legal thriller, but also making sure you have what makes a thriller a thriller. Because I always find when I'm writing my police procedurals, especially in the beginning with the first book, I found because I work in criminal law and and police procedurals are criminal law, I found there were instances where I was trying so hard to stick to the law and make sure that the law was right that I'd write myself into a corner. Yeah, and then I'd be stuck. Yeah, and then I literally have to sit here at my desk one day and say to myself, "It's a story. You're making it up." So you can make it up. Mm.
I agree, and I have to remind myself as well, because we are lawyers, we don't want to be criticised by fellow lawyers for getting things wrong. So we do need to get most of it right, but equally, the reason most of our people are reading our books are not to check our legal knowledge, but because they want to be told a good story, and they want characters that will engage them, and a story that will sweep them away to somewhere else. So I continually have to remind myself that no one is really interested in the police procedure or the legal procedure. And then the book I'm writing at the moment is about a barrister conducting an Old Bailey trial. And because I'm not a barrister, I've had to do a lot of research about the correct formalities and what people would actually say and at the moment I'm on a first draft which has lots of that stuff in it. I know that when I come to the second draft it will just all come out, because no one actually cares about that. No one wants to read about that stuff. Well, I mean, some people do, but they tend to be barristers and they're getting their info elsewhere. So it is tough, because you don't want to be accused of not knowing what you're talking about, but you also don't want to bore people senseless with the civil procedure rules or whatever.
I've been civil procedure rules.
Civil procedure rules, yeah.
I'm only laughing because you bore yourself senseless of them anyway. It doesn't matter of work. Putting it in a book. When I have to teach professional conduct and client care, and I'm like, oh my god, the rules. they're not exciting. You can't make it exciting.
Yeah, you can't make it exciting. You really get. It's best to keep it all out. I always Line of Duty and I love Line of Duty, but it always makes me laugh because whenever they refer to what we all call PACE, they always say the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984. Like no one calls it that in law.
No one calls it that
out loud. They just say PACE.
And even when I'm marking exam papers, like the students, they'll write out the full statute in like the first answer, but then after that, everything's just it's PACE. It's PACE.
Yeah,
Section 182 PACE.
In Line of Duty, no.
We need the full statute. That's what we need. What have you found the most challenging part of it, though, of writing legal thrillers? Because I just think as well, legal thrillers, I feel like I'm saying they kind of came out of fashion for a while. Like they were so big in the 90s, like everything. They were everywhere. And I feel they kind of died away. But now I feel in where we are in the 2020s, mid 2020s, they seem to be coming back.
Yeah,
there's seeing more of them. Being published next year.
What have I found hardest? I mean, I think that is the hardest bit. Is it the sort of striking the measure between getting it right, or at least getting it vaguely accurate, and keeping it interesting for non-lawyers? Because much as I love the law, a lot of it is bloody boring, and a lot of what we have to do is not to do with chasing the crims and tracking down the evidence. It's actually to do with filling in funding forms and all sorts of dull stuff. So it's making sure that it's plausible, but at the same time exciting. And of course, I am having to bend the truth in that both of my first legal thriller as Alan Sharp Alan involved. There were two main characters, but one of them is a legal aid solicitor, which is not very surprising given I once was a legal aid solicitor. And then in my second one, it's a criminal barrister. So I've had to sort of try and introduce readers to their world without giving them the boring bits. I've tried to, and I've also had to make them investigators, which of course in real life we're not. You tend to be you do a huge amount of analysis and some sort of investigating the evidence, but you're certainly not running about finding the true killer.
No, you're not.
Or getting to the bottom of a huge conspiracy, as happens in my first novel. But no one realistically would want to read about the things that we do on a day-to-day basis.
No,
it's true, they certainly wouldn't do a thriller. Yeah.
No, because I'm working, even though I'm doing my edits, and I've been working on something new as well, and it's got a lawyer in it. And this morning, I don't know why, it just occurred to me this morning, because I've got this lawyer going out and, like you said, doing the investigating.
Yeah.
And I walked into a bedroom and I said to myself, why is she doing this? Like, I've never investigated anything as a criminal lawyer. The most I've done is gone on a site visit and gone around with my little camera and taken some pictures of a park. I haven't investigated anybody, but then that's what the readers want. They want them to go on this. It's the whole Pelican Brief. It's the whole John Grisham firm. They want them to go on a chase. That's
exactly it. And I have, in Notes on a Drowning, I have given both of my characters a strong motivation to have to win it, because it starts off with the drowning of a young woman. I have given them both a strong motivation to seek the truth into her death. But as you say, realistically, if this case had come to me as an inquest when I was in private practice, as happens to Alex in the book, then I would have had to tell the family, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm not a private investigator. I'm not the police. I can't go about challenging all the evidence and, uncovering CCTV and finding out the truth. But, that's what people want in a thriller. Or at least I assume it is. We'll find out when it comes out.
I think that is what people want in a thriller. And I just remembered when I was a baby lawyer and my friend was a baby lawyer, and we was both in Westminster. Well, what was it called? Yeah, it was Horseferry Road back then. But Westminster Magistrates Court, and I was in one court and she was in the other, and then I came out and this guy just suddenly runs out of her courtroom and then she just strolls out, and I'm like, what's happened? And it was her client who climbed over the dock. You know how tall the dock? He'd climbed over the dock and he'd run out, and he was running out of court. And like in a film or like a legal thriller, she would have to be the one chasing after him.
Yeah,
like,
she would totally be the one.
Yeah, and no, she just strolled out, and I was followed her, and I was like, what's going on? She's like, he's escaped. I'm like, oh.
Amazing. Yes, you're right. In a thriller, that would be us pounding the streets, vaulting over. Yeah.
No,
Oh, there's Craig. Off he goes.
there's Craig. Off you go. Just let him go. I said, someone will get him. I'm not chasing after him.
Oh dear.
I was thinking like I always say to the baby lawyers, I say, listen, you need to remember that juries watch too much TV. So they're expecting those dramatic moments. And in the real world, there are very few dramatic moments when you're having a court case.
Yes, there's a lot of, and that's what I'm. Yes, the novel I'm writing at the moment is about a barrister who is from a criminal family, and she is forced to prosecute a supposed serial killer who she comes to realise might in fact be innocent. But of course, as I go through all the court procedure and actually what would really happen, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. So I'm condensing it. I'm sorry, this will be totally inaccurate, but I can't, in a real multiple murder trial, it would go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And
God, months, yeah.
Yeah, months, possibly months. So I'm condensing it, and I'm only giving them the exciting bits because I can't imagine anyone will keep reading otherwise.
It's even like with my police procedurals, because I always could put myself in this same mess where I have to sort out my timeline before I can even start editing, and it took me like 2 days of this one. And I'm sorting out my timeline. I'm going through the pages, and I'm thinking to myself, there is no way in this world that you could solve a multiple murder case, a serial killer case in 10 days. But yet, this is what's happening in my
mine takes 14 days in mine at the moment. But, maybe that's too, maybe I'll have to condense it even further.
So, Anna, before I ask you to explain and talk about, I'm asking you to do like the elevator pitch for Notes on the Drowning, which is very good because I did a blurb for it.
You did. You were very kind.
It was very good. When it arrived, I was like, well, first the proof arrived with sweets, which is always an excellent.
Yeah, there you go. That is.
I think that's what I messaged you and said to you. You weren't even like, thank you. It was like, I got sweets.
That was my suggestion. My editor was suggesting all sorts of things. I was like, no, just send sweets. That's what people actually want.
Yeah. Especially me. I want sweets. So tell us about Notes on the Drowning.
Right. I'm really bad at doing elevator pitches. My own books, but it is about two determined women. So as I mentioned, there's Alex, who's a legal aid lawyer working on the inquest into the death of a young Moldovan woman who is dragged from the Thames. And then there's a second woman, Kat, who is the special advisor to the Home Secretary. And she also comes to hear about this case and also realizes that the sort of official narrative that they're being given is not correct. So they have to, I can't tell you why it's difficult for them to come together, but they have to overcome their difficulties to come together to investigate what's actually going on. And that's what then leads them into this sort of, on this trail of this corruption at the heart of government. But also there is a cat called Cat Stevens in it. And what else can I say? Yes. And it's also about Russian money. And I originally got the idea when I was hearing about the Epstein scandal and hearing his survivors talk and learning about how many powerful people were involved in his life and in participating in covering up what went on. And that's sort of where I got the idea that I wanted to talk about sort of a very abusive man who is sort of sanctioned by all these powerful political people and then actually uses it against them. So that's sort of where it came from. But I've put jokes in this one to make it slightly more palatable.
This is the thing, though, when you look at these real life stories, even like with what's his name, Sean Diddy Coombs and stuff, and get away with things for so long. I'll say allegedly because he hasn't gone to court yet, but anyway, they can allegedly get away with things allegedly for so long. But it's the people. So I'm always fascinated more by the people around them who just let it carry on, and they just remain quiet. Because
I don't know if you've seen today that various other people have been charged in relation to the Mohammed El Fayed case because they were actually helping him carry out the abuse of all these girls and women. And that's the really fascinating thing, because you can kind of, it's, you know, we know that very bad people exist, but what's really confusing and just weird is how people sort of come to view those people as so powerful that they're willing to enable them to carry out these criminal and terrible acts. And that's, I think that's a really interesting phenomenon. And of course, there've been lots of them, and there continue to be lots of them. And every time it happens, everyone goes, "I'm so shocked, and this is terrible." And then it turns out that actually a load of people knew and weren't doing anything about it, or were actively helping them carry out the abuse. And it keeps happening. Yeah.
I don't know what happens to people when they get adjacent to power. They feel, I don't know, maybe they feel that they're untouchable just by being close to that person and then allowing that behaviour to carry on. But it all comes out eventually.
Well, it doesn't all. I'm sure there's lots of stuff we know about.
I'll say
but
that.
Yes, there'll be more that comes out. But yeah, so I was really interested in that sort of dynamic, and so I added that to bits of the legal aid world I knew. And as I say, particularly the funny, there's hilarious things that happen in law firms that you wouldn't believe. So a few of them have gone in there, like the post boy who was just locking all of our posts or outgoing post in a box for a week before anyone realised what was going on. He's in there.
Do you know what? You're right. There are so many funny things that happen in a law firm. A lot of them I won't even talk about on this podcast right now.
No, we can't talk about them. But yeah, there's so many surreal things that happen, and you think, is this really going on? Is this really normal? So yeah, a few of them have got in there in shrouded form.
I remember like one of the craziest things was, and I'm sure I put it in one of the books, not in the same way, but I did use it in a book. Was where I remember I was going to work. And I wasn't a trainee solicitor yet. I think I was a paralegal. Yeah. And I was going to work. I'm in this criminal law firm. And I remember it was summertime. So they had work experience kids. And you know, work experience kids, they're 15 years old.
Yeah.
And maybe I was a trainee. But anyway, we got a 15-year-old girl on work experience. And I come in. And I remember going upstairs. That's where the photocopier was. And I can see her photocopying. And I don't know what said to me, look at what she's photocopying. Yeah. And I've gone to look. Someone only had her photocopy in the autopsy photo album. And I was like,
oh my God.
I know. That's what.
Oh, the poor girl.
I shouldn't laugh. I don't know why I'm laughing now. But at the time, I was like, why are you doing this? And who told you to do this? And I'm thinking, you're 15. You should not be looking at autopsy pictures.
Oh, no.
And someone had a photocopy of them. It's not funny.
It's not funny, but it is kind of funny.
It is kind of funny, but it's
but awful.
It's so awful. Funny moments. Funny moments do happen. So, how many Anna Sharp books do you think you have in you? And will you go back to your historical crime fiction?
I hope so. So it's not looking very healthy for historical at the moment, basically, is what the advice I'm being given. So, I mean, historical is what I really love, and I hope to, at some point, be able to come back to it. But I might have to pretend to be someone else at that point. Maybe that's when I really will be Alan. Well, that's when I'll be Alan. I don't know, what would be a good historical fiction writer name? Alan.
I was going to say Firkin.
Anyway, so hopefully I will return to historical fiction at some point, but at the moment I don't think I'd get a deal, or wouldn't get a decent deal. So there will definitely be at least another Anna Sharp, or at least I hope there will be, given they've contracted me to write it. So that's Life for Your Life, which should be out 2026, I think. And then after that, I don't know. I guess if those do all right, then I will continue being Anna Sharp. And if they don't, then I will become yet someone else doing something else. I've got an idea for a crime novel that I want to write. So I'll probably do that. But whether under which name, who knows? And for people listening who, Alan, I think maybe that is the secret. That's where I've been going wrong to date, not being called Alan. I think that's what the people want. Yeah.
We want Alan.
Yeah.
Right, before I go into your last set of questions, Anna, not Alan, what? So this is not your last set, but I'm always interested in what piece. I'll start again. What piece of advice do you wish you'd been told earlier? I'm going to ask you in both ways, both in your career as a lawyer, but also in your career as a writer.
Ooh, okay. Advice I wish I'd been given earlier. I guess As a writer, I wish I'd kind of worked out earlier on that what you need to know when you're writing the book is what is the reader reading to find out? What is propelling us through the narrative? What is keeping them turning the pages? Because I think it took me so many drafts to get my first novel right. And it's quite a lot to get my second novel right, because I wasn't really thinking about what is the reader reading to find out. I was thinking about the characters and the setting and all that. But what you really want, especially if you're writing something within the crime genre, is to have, a narrative that pulls the reader through the book and makes them want to carry on writing and desperate to find out what happens next. It took me a long time to work that out. So I wish someone had set me down and told me that. And what was the other question?
What piece of advice you'd wish you'd been told earlier in your career as a lawyer?
As a lawyer? Oh gosh, I don't know. Do the kind of law that makes money, maybe, not human rights law. No, I'm kind of joking. I did know that I was not going to make huge amounts of money, and I decided to do it anyway. I don't know, what advice do I think would have helped me as a lawyer? I don't know. What do you think? What advice would you give
even now
yourself?
I'm thinking about it now. What piece of advice? Oh, mine's really boring. It's more health and safety. I would have started wearing trainers to court earlier.
That's a good idea. Actually, maybe mine would be health and safety as well, in that get yourself a proper keyboard, because I ended up with RSI quite early on because I spent so long tapping away on a laptop as both a lawyer and a writer. And had I got a proper desk set up and a proper keyboard, I wouldn't have the problems I have today. So there you go. We've given everyone some healthy tips.
It's very practical. Wear your trainers, and then wear your trainers. And swap into your shoes when you get into court. It took me far too long to start doing that. Yeah. I should have just done it from day one.
Yeah.
Okay, Anna, your last set of questions. Are you an introvert or extrovert, or a hybrid of the two?
I am what my son would call an ambivert, which I didn't know was a word, but he says it's a thing, because I think both he and I are this, which is I can do the social stuff, and as you know, I'm always at launches and parties. Yeah. And I love going out and meeting people and doing events. I then need time on my own. I need to be locked away writing or with a book. So I would say both. I can do the sociable bit, but I need my own time.
What are you reading now? I never ask anyone what they're reading, but what are you reading now?
Well, do you know what I've just started, and which is totally brilliant? It's Peckham Boy. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's so good. I'm just trying to remember the name of the author, but it's about this guy who grows up on the estates in Peckham and ends up it's Kenny Imafidon is his name. Okay. And he relates growing up in this sort of very poor household without any kind of male role model, and how he became sort of attracted to gang culture. So that is really, really fascinating. I tend to read lots of things at the same time, which I now realize is partly because I think I have ADHD, but I always have several books. So I'm also reading If It Bleeds by Stephen King, because I've been on a Stephen King binge, and I've just finished Death at the Sign of the Rook by Kate Atkinson, which is the latest Jackson Brodie one.
You are reading a lot at the same time.
I am reading. I'm also reading non-fiction. Do you not do that? Do you not read several books?
No, I do. I don't even know why I'm even acting like I don't, because I'm looking around me and I'm like, yeah, I do. I think I've got I've forgotten the title. My brain's not working today. But I'm reading
so we're in good company. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading like a cozy crime book, which I will remember. I'm reading Louise Minchin's Isolation Island. I'm reading a non-fiction book about cryptocurrency, because I think it's all a scam.
Yeah.
and I'm probably going to use it in a book somehow. So it's like a bit of research. Then I've always got my comics on the go. So yeah, I do. And I think I've got an audio books as well. I've got them on the go.
Yes, I've got audio. And tell you what I'm listening to. Fatal Proof by John Fairfax. Have you ever read him?
No.
He writes legal thrillers, but no one seems to have heard of him, and he's brilliant. He's really good. So that I've got that on the go as well. So lots of things.
I'm listening to, and I don't know why, I thought, let me just put it on. I'm listening to The Pelican Brief.
Okay.
I want to hear how it sounds as an audio book. I read it so long ago,
Yeah,
like
same. Yeah.
1990, whatever year it was. Yeah, and so I want to hear it. So I'm listening to that as well. I'm using my Spotify free credits.
Oh, brilliant.
So that's right. So moving on, what challenge or experience in your life shaped you the most? And I always say it can be a good experience or a bad one, so you don't feel it needs to be the world is over.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure lots. I mean, the thing that happened to me recently, without getting too depressing about it, but it's a bit of last year, about a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with a meningioma, which is a kind of benign brain tumor.
Yeah.
But it was taken out my hearing nerve. And I've had treatment for it, and they think they've stalled it, so that's great. But there were a few weeks where we didn't know what it was, we didn't know whether it was cancerous, we didn't know what was going on. Where I was, and that was really frightening. But it did just make me kind of, it's in a positive way, reminded me that we do have to sort of make the most of things. And carpe diem sounds a bit naff, but it did remind me that I might not have that long actually, and I should be doing things with my time that are worthwhile and I want to do. And also that I shouldn't be hanging around with people who sap my energy and confidence, that I should be focusing on the people who, the fun people and the fun things that I want to be doing. So that was kind of important for me. And I immediately went out and got 2 tattoos. For ages I've been thinking I wanted them but wasn't sure, and I thought, F it, I'm just going to do it.
Just do it.
That has changed my outlook on life in a good way, I think. A good way.
I think that's one of the things that I think of, I don't know, it's just been like drummed home into me the last couple of years, like looking at who's around you. Yeah. And who's taking your energy and who you want to give your energy to.
Yes.
Because I think life is too short for me to be, sitting with people who are just draining me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, a lot of those people are, there might be people we've known for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Sort of put up with it. But then when you realise that actually it's not helping you, it's not helping your mental health, and it's not helping you have a happy life, then, get rid of them.
Yeah, I said it to a friend. I said it to a friend of mine, like I was trying to explain to her why I wasn't, say, not talking to another friend.
Yeah.
And I said to her, and she didn't get it until I said to her, I've given them a lot of grace in the past.
Yeah.
Like so much grace, and not to say that's not reciprocated, but there's only so much you can give before you realise, you know what, I'm just wasting my time. There's a whole world out there. Exactly.
I like that, the negative energy and positive energy.
Yeah,
it's important. Yeah,
it is. All right, so if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, now this is a bit sad, because I was thinking about it. I guess it would be because I'll be honest about it, I've struggled lots of my life with eating disorders and sort of body image. It was just be to say that shit doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what you weigh or what you look like or how much you eat. You're focusing on the wrong thing. There's so much more in the world. It would be to sort of open my eyes and sort of see outside that narrow way that I was looking at that time. I mean, I probably wouldn't have listened to myself, but I would have tried. I
always say 25. I think there's a bit much of a better chance of you listening at 25 than you would at 18. 18, you definitely wouldn't listen. I wouldn't listen to anybody at 18.
Definitely. No, exactly. But you're right. 25, there's some chance, yeah.
There's some chance. Slim, but some. Okay. So finally, Anna Mazzola or Anna Sharp, Alan.
Or Alan, yeah.
Where can listeners of the conversation find you online?
Basically everywhere apart from Twitter these days. So I've joined Blue Skies. We've discussed Anna Maz on Blue Sky, and it's really fun, isn't it? I'm really enjoying it.
It is.
It's really good on there. I'm Anna Mazzola writer on Instagram and Threads as well. So I spend far too much time on social media. So, I would love it if people came and talked to me. I've also got a website, annamazzola.com, but I can't say that I update it very frequently. In fact, this has reminded me that I don't think there's anything on there at all about Anna or Alan Sharp at the moment, which needs to be rectified quite quickly.
No, I can tell you what's on it, because I did go on it. I'm like, because I do my research. So notes on a drowning is mentioned.
Yeah,
but that's it.
Mentioned. That's it. That's it. I need to do a lot more than that by January, don't I?
Yes, please do. I feel like I've helped you today. If I've done anything, I've told you it's mentioned.
Mentioned. There is some bloke called Alan writing in the book.
There is some bloke called Alan.
Yeah.
All right, so Anna, that just leaves me to say, Anna Mazzola, thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Oh no, thank you for having me on. It's been so lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.